The National Recovery Program Bureau, the government of St. Martin, and the World Bank called a press conference on Friday, May 17th to highlight the one-day working visit of Vice President of the World Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean, Mr. Axel van Trotsenburg, to the island. Prime Minister Romeo Marlin, during the press conference, took the opportunity to update the public on the progress made with the projects that are a part of the Recovery, Reconstruction, and Resiliency Trust Fund.
I'm very happy for the opportunity to be able to express to the public of St. Martin that we all can so that we can all explain the developments of the trust fund, provide more information about the projects that have been executed and are ongoing, and share more details about the current implementation progress. It has not been an easy road, but we all know recovery is not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's my quote, and it's so true. The road to recovery is a long one, and it requires joint responsibility, which is why we're all here present to reassure the citizens of St. Martin that we are working tireless on their behalf to prepare us for the hurricane season 2019 and onward. The recovery projects that are funded via the trust fund are being executed in 3 tranches, as I have indicated many times to the people of St. Martin, and I will use this opportunity again. The first tranche of $134 million have been completely committed and released by the World Bank. The second tranche of $171 million is under preparation and has been allocated. The third tranche is currently being worked on by the steering committee. These projects executed under the first tranche are the emergency project. These projects has begun and are still ongoing. The projects consist of areas concerned for the priorities of St. Martin, such as housing and matters of safety and concern, such as the Hospital Resilience Project, the Emergency Income Support and Training Project. We have been able to achieve the following under the emergency projects thus far. A total of 900 persons have graduated and have now upgraded their knowledge in their respective fields, such as hotel management, housekeeping, plumbing, electrical, masonry, etc. The housing and roof project are ongoing, and over 109 homes have been prepared. The hospital project is being repaired, the roof has been extended, and new generators have been ordered. The repairs on the police stations are completed, and the equipment for the fire department have been purchased. That's an update from last week's, earlier this week, Wednesday meeting in press briefing. We are currently preparing for the execution of the second tranche. This includes small and medium enterprise recovery projects, which allows our local banks to provide small and medium grant and loans to sole proprietors and business owners. Under the second tranche, we will also focus on the solid waste management project, which is a long-term project. The mission is to eliminate the waste problem on the island. We have received the approval from the steering committee for the construction of the road link from South Reward to the Dutch Quarter, better known as Link 6. In Tranche 3, the exact projects will be decided by St. Martin and will be vetted by the steering committee. During the third tranche, we will focus on the dump and finances, and we will set aside new construction projects. Today, I can state that we have come a very long way. There is much more to be done, and we will get the job done. I also would like to thank everyone for their countless sacrifices that has all allowed us to make it this far. During this 2-day visit, we discussed how to accelerate communication, work on communication between partners, and our ultimate goal is to ensure the full recovery of St. Martin. I want to personally thank Mr. Axel van Trotsenburg for his visit here, Ms. Tassin Sayed, and of course the steering committee members that come from abroad, which is Mr. Frans Wakers and Tassin Sayed, and of course our local counterpart, which is Mr. Marcel Gums and the steering committee, for all of the tireless work that they have put into this, along with the Bureau, the director, Mr. Connor, and his staff. All of the World Bank representatives here on St. Martin, I don't want to go through the names, but you know who you are. Those from the Dutch representations here on St. Martin, I can think of Mr. Chris Johnson, also Mirte don't remember the last name right now. I see you're smiling. But a lot of work has been put into this. At times we feel, perception is reality, but nevertheless, we are working diligently to accomplish all of the goals that we have identified in our National Recovery Plan. And we are committed. We have a committed team, and I'm very happy that Mr. van Trotsenberg has also shown his commitment and willingness to accelerate where necessary.
Vice President of the World Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean, Mr. Axel van Trotsenberg, during Friday's press conference echoed the remarks of the Prime Minister and expressed that the consensus between St. Martin, the Dutch, and the World Bank is pushing the reconstruction program forward. The World Bank Vice President also highlighted the opportunity offered through the Trust Fund.
I've been here on a visit of one day. I arrived yesterday. But I would like to start with a thank you to the Prime Minister and her cabinet. I have had the opportunity to meet the Prime Minister earlier in Washington during the steering committee meetings. And one thing I noticed that probably we share together is a certain sense of impatience. And I agree with this. One of the difficult tasks when countries face with the post-disaster, there are huge expectations that need to be met, and they are all legitimate, and one needs to move. For us, we have been engaged in this type of business in the past. There has been a difference with St. Martin. St. Martin has not been a member of the World Bank, so that relationship had to be created also through the Trust Fund. This Trust Fund is up running since 12 months, and we have gotten to know each other much, much better. And I think one learns through the process on this. But I think what unifies us, apart from that learning, was from the get-go a very strong commitment, whether one was sitting at the St. Martin side, the Dutch side, or the World Bank side, a great desire to move forward in the reconstruction of St. Martin. The Trust Fund provides a huge opportunity as it is not only focused on the reconstruction, and the Prime Minister just summarized the tranches that have been committed and are under execution and are benefiting people directly, but also the bigger development agenda. And that can be linked between, if you look at the airport, where there is a reconstruction side as well as a development side, because once that airport can be reconstructed, it will provide, again, if you would, the calling card, the visit card of St. Martin to welcome the thousands or hundreds of thousands of tourists. And everybody would like to see the country getting back to the levels of 2016 and then go beyond that to provide more jobs, but also more economic possibility, and ultimately a wonderful time for tourists to visit this wonderful island. Here we will have to work together. We are looking at this. I had yesterday the chance to visit the airport. My personal recommendation, in the spirit also what the Prime Minister said, what are the options to accelerate this work? Can we actually see work being done in 3 shifts so that actually the work can be completed much, much earlier and the country can benefit from the tourists that like to come to this island? The World Bank is open for all this. The organizing principle should be agility and fast, but it cannot be fast and badly constructed. We will need to make sure that we build back better, that that we are looking at also environmental, social safeguards. Think of the dump. There are toxic gases. We need to be careful about it. This requires good solutions, but within this, we need to see how we can accelerate as much as possible. We see each other as a long-term partner. I think it is a wonderful story to see that with now this relationship being established with St. Martin is also joining already other efforts in order to be better protected against other hurricanes. The World Bank had championed, for example, an insurance scheme against catastrophic events like hurricanes in the Caribbean, through a Caribbean risk insurance scheme. The great thing is that St. Martin has now also joined this. This provides not the solution, but certainly it could provide immediate cash support in the event of a major disaster. And so what it is what this relationship is now also doing is that we are expanding the relationship with St. Martin with other countries in the Caribbean. We think this is a very good development, and I hope that we see more potential in this. Looking ahead is that the steering committee at the end of April meeting, as well as here, that we are wanting to keep a very sharp focus, not only on the timelines that we have to deliver jointly, but also that we would like to make sure that the information gets out as much as possible. It's sometimes difficult when the teams are working and then some of the news people are announcing are not being reported. So I certainly would invite the colleagues of the press to report what the Prime Minister just said, because there are some good messages in there. And because this is actually happening as we talk. I think what we will need to think is how we can bring more information of progress to it. Today I had also a talk with the President of the Parliament. I've said, the more we can basically put light on how the progress is happening, as well as how the World Bank works, we welcome that, so that basically people have a good understanding how we are working. But everything said and done, the only criteria what certainly we are looking at is we need to produce the results that the citizens of this island deserves. They would like to have an improved situation from where what they were facing at the end of 2017, and to that we are committed. This is also what was the whole spirit of this trust fund when it was set up, is how to provide the necessary relief, but also use some of these resources for the larger development agenda. And here what we hope is that the workings together with St. Martin as well as the Netherlands is producing good results. I also would like to thank the St. Martin government for providing the necessary leadership, particularly the Prime Minister, because at the end of the day, what I have been receiving question is as if this trust fund, that the World Bank would provide the project, what needs to be done. I would like to clarify is in our relations with member countries, it is the country that will need to define its priorities and what needs to be done. Once the country that has, and they have the projects, they propose it. It is the country that needs to be in the driver's seat in terms of determining what are the priorities, and the government knows best what needs to be done for the citizen of the country. There, St. Martin is not different than any of the other member countries we serve. As a function of those requests, we prepare projects, and those are then implemented by St. Martin with technical support or any support we may have agreed during the preparation process. But so I would like to make it very clear that the priorities will need to stay in line with the St. Martin priorities, and as a function of that we would like to move forward. Let me finish by again thanking the authorities for an extremely warm reception yesterday. I got a good taste of the warmth of the Caribbean and of St. Martin. It was a pleasure, but also the hard work by the government on the different projects, and that is actually a story worth telling. I realize that we need to do more. Please count on the World Bank support, that we will continue to work hard on this, and certainly what probably all of the parties in the steering committee agree on. We would like to increase the level of ambition, the level of speed, and be even more impactful as soon as possible.
Now, the steering committee was appointed 1 year ago when the trust fund started. And Mr. van Tronssenburg, you said it already. Sometimes we are impatient, but we have to realize that the big projects, the dump, the airport, those are very complex projects. But even the roof repair of the private houses, it's a complex project because all houses are different and they all have to be assessed socially and technically. But I'm very glad being back on the island right now that I see a lot of progress. And one of the technical people sent by World Bank told me about his assessments last week of those private homes, that he said, well, people are smiling. They are smiling because they have hope and they see things are being done. Let's say from the side of the Dutch government, that is highly appreciated, that we can give a bit of assistance and help to our sister country in the kingdom, and we are very glad that together with the World Bank, the Bureau and all the teams do excellent work. So thank you again.
I would just like to add that for me it's a year. A year ago, the Prime Minister called me and asked me if I would like to come and assist and be on the steering committee. And I said, you know, Prime Minister, I'm pretty busy, a lot of things to do, repairs and so. And she said it will only take 1 day out of the week. Well, I haven't seen that week yet that I spend 1 day in the steering committee. It's been days and nights, but I say I do it with pleasure. It's a meaningful contribution that I feel that I'm making to my country, to my island, and to the rebuilding process of this island in its totality. It's bittersweet. When I say bittersweet, yes, we would like to see things go much faster. And yes, I'm approached, because I'm the one on the ground. France is in London and Tashin is in Washington, but they do support me very much. We work along well. And when I say bittersweet, because yes, when you go in the supermarket, you know, the people ask you, but when is the roof coming? You know, I have to go home every day, and I got to hear from my wife, when you're going to fix the library, when you're going to do this. But the sweet part of it is, you know, it's like when you're in the supermarket and a lady comes up behind you and say, Mr. Gums, I want to thank you and the government and Holland, the Dutch government, the taxpayers, for the project where I'm going to at NEPA, where I'm getting an income and where I have insurance for my SZV and where I'm learning to do something. That's the sweet part of it. And so I say there's a sweet and a bitter part, but that's the sweet part. And that means that it's meaningful to people. Over 900 people is in this program. And for some reason or the other, it's mentioned a lot. And I don't just want to, you know, I want to emphasize on it a bit. It's one of the most successful program I think ever ran, where these people are going, especially after the hurricane, and they have an opportunity to learn, get a stipend, and also get their medical insurance. The Bureau is open. Claret has its own building now. We are all here. And I think we can definitely say that we will have much, much more production because the Bureau is being staffed. Because a lot of the work also is not only the World Bank, but it's also from our side. in the preparations and the coordinations. And so, Prime Minister, thank you for giving me the opportunity to again be able to make a contribution to this country. And Franz and Tashin, you all have a great team. Love both of you. You do work well. And thank you.
Excellencies, good afternoon. I'm going to generalize my question specifically towards the Prime Minister and Mr. Trotzenberg, if I said that right. Taking into consideration the fact that the hurricane season is fast approaching, many persons are very disappointed, basically saying, look, the roof repair program in particular has been going way too slow. We are almost 2 years after the hurricane. What can be done to speed up the process, looking at the fact that there are so many people still roofless?
Thank you for that question. Indeed, as we have admitted that we have some delays with the roof repair program, but we have made some concrete decisions on how we will tackle the problem. It has been a very complex project. It's not as 1, 2, 3. We had to do social assessments. We had to do technical assessments as well. And we had some delays, but we are working diligently on such, and I've had the commitment from the Bureau and, of course, the Trust Fund, the World Bank's technical team, that there's certain directions that we're going to take, or certain strategies that we're going to take now that is different than what we were doing before. But let us not forget that the individual homes, that's for individual homes, but a lot have been done with the St. Martin Housing Development Foundation, where funds were also given to them, and a lot have been done there too. We are specifically focusing, I believe your question is specifically for individual homes, but remember the government has a responsibility as well to make sure that we do an assessment of home, and it has to do more than just someone living on a specific property. In that assessment, certain questions are asked. Are they the homeowner? Because the question is, does the own homeowner want that house repaired? So there were a lot of complications that we didn't come out to the public and really state, but we were actually dealing with the issues. So we have some strategic strategies that we're about to implement, starting, I believe it's the on the 1st of June, Tassin, where I'm sure that you may further state on that, but definitely we have told them, and we had a lot of pressure, of course. It has been in the media, only 5 homes the government did, et cetera, a lot of pressure from external persons, but nevertheless, we knew without exposing certain things what exactly was happening on the ground floor. It's not as easy as 1, 2, 3. We have a shantytown issue. We have issues where we have to ask questions such as, are we going to fix homes that are have complicated situations? For example, it's not their homes, it's someone else's home, etc. So there was a lot of complications, and that's, we just used the word complex. But think about the complex issues that we really have here. But note that we have listened to the needs of the population as it relates to repairing home. We cannot repair all homes. I want to make that clear. We cannot repair all homes. Homes that have been assessed, yes. Those that have met the criteria, yes. But the complex ones where, let's just put it as complex issues, we cannot. It's not the government's responsibility to repair every home. I think that, let us be fair, and that is something that I challenge the media, and we can have a great discussion on such. Where do we stop as a government? And it's one of the reasons I also urge persons to take the responsibility as well in making sure that they insure their homes. Because as individual homeowners, we too have a responsibility. Because when you don't take your responsibility or your shared responsibility and something happens, then it becomes the government's fault. Let us be fair. But nevertheless, an assessment has been done. The Department of Romy worked very hard, along with VSA. Their staff worked very hard, along with the technical team of the World Bank, in going out there and doing the social assessments. So within short, you will see some more progress. Will we make it before the peak of the hurricane season? I will honestly tell you, I don't think so. And let us not forget, we had other organizations that also tackled the roof repair program, such as UNDP. We had the White and Yellow Cross. You heard Mr. Gums talk about me pulling him away from what he was doing. What he was doing is working on projects with the White and Yellow Cross, repairing the roofs and homes of the senior citizens. We also had the St. Martin Development Fund under the leadership of Mr. Keith Franca and his counterpart to be Ms. Mackie Brooks. Makisha Brooks. I was going to keep it just with a nickname that I knew. But they work diligently as well, repairing roofs. So when I hear the feedback that nothing has been done, all of this has been done with the funds given by the Netherlands, be it trust fund projects, government with the little resources that we had, or direct funding. So the strategic plan, I will let Mr. van Trotsenburg further on that.
So I think this is a very good question, but I think we need to separate. First of all, you have to look who needs most our attention and help, and it was social housing. That was the first priority because it's the most vulnerable, and we have repaired houses that benefit about 500 people. So that was the first priority. And I think that remains the most vulnerable that are in the social houses are the number one attention. Then there is the second one to get for private houses. Now, you have also to realize that in my previous job, I dealt with the finances from the bank, including management for trust funds. We managed 660 trust fund for $30 billion. This trust fund, St. Martin, includes a component for private houses, i.e. gifts to private owners up to 10, 20, 30, 40, even $50,000. Let me tell you, I've been 30 years in the World Bank. I have never, ever seen this gift component in any trust fund I've ever managed, in any. But this is taxpayers' money. So if somebody would like to have 30,000 or 40,000 or 50,000, at least I think the trustee and the government should know, A, whether this application is justified, that there is no double dipping, that somebody is the legal tender, that it is not something that is used for speculative purposes, because this is a gift. Please think of that. Have you ever received a gift of $40,000, $50,000? Certainly I have never. I think nobody in this room has ever. This is a very generous act, and I think it is great that we can help, but I think we should do it correctly. It involves an unprecedented high amount. Just to put that in relation, I think that the GDP per capita of St. Martin is in the area of $25,000. The potential support for the private houses is between 1 and twice the GDP per capita. That is the dimension. So I think we need to say that there is a minimum of due diligence necessary. I share that, what you said about the impatience. So I went back to my staff and I said, well what's the big deal on this? So why don't you move? And then when you go through the assessment, you are in for surprises. in either that the owner isn't there, so they haven't been traced. There have been buildings that don't enjoy papers, so that certain things have been constructed without authorization. So then this type of issues, these are the real life issues the teams have been working on. Having said that, I think what has been done is that the Bureau has been working day and night to see how one can narrow that. They have identified, I think, in the order of 135 houses already on this, and they're working on a continuous basis and see how they can be started on this. But I think we need also to report that this is a great initiative, but it is also involving an enormous gift that requires due diligence. And that I think is I think certainly necessary, that you want to avoid that once you report back that these things have been correctly spent.
Thank you. Alita Singh of the Daily Herald.
Thank you, Giselle. Good afternoon to everyone, as protocol has already been observed. My question will focus around a statement that Mr. Van Trostenberg says, increase acceleration of the pace of projects. My colleague just asked about housing projects, which of course is a very small part of the whole. And one of the big issues faced by the Trust Fund, by the World Bank, is visibility. A large project that is still pending, and I would hope it's not that complicated, is our dump. That dump affects every single individual on St. Maarten, without question, including our visitors. And what is the status at the moment of getting that project off the ground? Hearing about fire suppression and hearing about red zones is not enough for this community. We need to know where that project is, and we need a date for when that project will start.
Do you want my answer on this? I visited this. I would agree. I would like to see that that is being tackled as soon as possible. But there are important decisions to be made. There is the dump site, and what I understand is there may be also the need for an alternative dump site where future waste should be unloaded. So these are important decisions to be taken, and to look what are the alternatives that can be used. It is also not the case that that when you have fires inside, that you just say, look, you put a little bit of water, and then that will be solved. The water will drain in the pond on this again, and you don't know what is in the dump. You will also need to think, when you talk about resilience and building back better, you will need to think of better waste management, given that this is a small island. So how do you optimize waste management? Concretely, in a city-state like Singapore, they have pretty smart waste management in way where the waste is being separated, and that what can be burned safely. What that does is it reduces the absolute necessity for a landfill by 80%. So these are the things, if you are looking at long-term solutions, you may need to think, how could that best fit into the context of St. Maarten? St. Maarten will have different features on this. We have said we can bring all the best experts from around the world, because we have been working with landfills and waste management, and do this. We have said we stand ready to evaluate that. But it is also important that we would like to make sure that the government can take informed decisions on the basis of all the necessary elements, because this has been a problem that has been around for 40 years. So it will require not shooting from the hip, but a deliberate decision, all on the basis of good information. We'll try to bring that, and the government may have also its own other evaluations, but what we want to make sure is that they can indeed access all the things we have offered that, and we will work closely on this. I think it's also important in your communications that the problematic is explained. It is not just putting something over the dump site. It is also working with the existing one, how you actually deal with that in a responsible manner. Because otherwise it's a Pyrrhus victory. You cover that for 5 minutes, and then at one stage the fire has come back, and then you haven't solved anything. So that there is the existing dump, and then you need to look at ultimately a longer term solutions. And those needs to be tackled. I think what is the good news is, this is also a central piece in the $500 million support program. And so we want to work on this. Nobody is interested in delaying, but I also think that it would be wise for the government to really look at all the options, all the effects, because it is the due diligence. In here, you have environment and social standards. Similarly to dealing with the people that live very close to the dump, you will need to find the appropriate solution, and that will require also a lot of consultations and seeing how one can best deal with this. So there needs also that sensitivity on this is to be taken into account. I just think we are on this, but it will require a very deliberate action.
The social assessment is still ongoing. We're finalizing that, and we've decided that would be completed by the end of this month. But right now, in terms of homes that have clear the social assessment, and the social assessment means the persons have met the criteria in terms of their income monthly, the person owned a home and can prove it, the person actually live within the home. We have about 175 individuals that have cleared the social assessment. And also, if you've noticed in the press recently, we've begun with the first phase of the home repair, where we started to repair 14 homes, and as the Vice President indicated, 14 homes on St. Martin got a gift of over $50,000 per. So just understand the magnitude of such a undertaking and the results of it in terms of what individuals are obtaining on behalf of the trust fund, on behalf of government, and everyone that is involved. Well, again, as the VP indicated, the dump actually is a problem that we created as a country over the years. It didn't arrive in Phillipsburg last week, so it would not be solved next week. What we are doing at present, the daily cover has been procured. The order has been completed. The equipment, actually, after this press conference, I'm going to Windward Island Bank right now to complete a credit letter for the company that is supplying the material and equipment. The heavy equipment has been shipped this week, and the material will be shipped as soon as the letter of credit is completed between the banks that represent the organizations that are supplying the equipment to the island. So that is exactly where the project is right now. As far as the fire suppression go, as the Vice President said, that is more complex. That is the next phase, but we are addressing the immediate problem, which is the daily cover material and the equipment to apply it.
If I may also add, as it relates to the red zone, and you kind of downplayed it a little bit, but in actuality, it's something that it's of great concern. Remember, you have a group of people living on the dump area for X amount of years, and finding the proper homes for them is something that had to be done. And I believe the Minister of VROMI has finally found a solution for the moving of those individuals. Assessments had to be done, a spot for, yes.
I want you to correct that. The equipment, it's the ADC, the alternative daily coverage that's coming, not the equipment.
So the alternative daily equipment coverage is what is coming and not the equipment itself. So the heavy equipment. So that is still pending. But as it relates to the people living there, I believe 19 families have to be relocated to a different area, assessing what exactly is in their houses, what exactly is their living conditions, how do we move those 19 persons. Remember, Alita, this problem didn't start yesterday. It didn't start 2018. It didn't start before, right after Irma. This is a problem that has been lingering for years. And in order for us to start the process in tackling the fire suppression, we had to deal with this group of persons living in this area because their safety comes first. And that assessment has been completed. I know some consultants, some local consultants actually went into the homes, spoke to the individuals, and that has been completed now. And so now the next stage is here. A location has been found to move them to, and I think that is something that is key and should not be undermined. We had to think about the people's first because they weren't illegals either.
If I may just add 2 cents to it, in relocating people like in that situation, there is international rules and regulation laws that government has to comply with. You just can't take the people and put them on the road. You got to give them something better than what they had. All these are written down in rules and regulations on the books that government has to comply with. And in particular, World Bank also, that's in charge of it, they got their set rules and regulations that they have to comply with. And those rules and regulations, if you take your time and you go on the website, you will find them and you can read all the conditions that has to be complied with before you can take one person, move them out to their house, and put them wherever. And we have, on the other hand, we have a shortage of available homes and locations to put people. We got a shortage of land. We got a shortage of just about everything on this island, and you got to be creative and look for solutions that complies and that is transparent and that is complying with all the rules and regulations that you have to deal with as a country, not only in the kingdom, but as part of civilized society.
Thank you. Yes, very, very small.
Thank you very much. How much money is still on the account? If you opened your account today for the World Bank Recovery Fund, on the World Bank, how much is already spent from the 530 million? I really want to know how much is left on the account.
I just mentioned that the way this is being organized is in three tranches. The first tranche was 130 million, which all the projects have been committed. Secondly is we have about 170 under preparation, 35 was approved, and the next few months all this 170 will be committed. Then the next tranche will be released by the, I don't know when, by the Dutch government, but that has not been a problem. That is the third tranche. And as the Prime Minister has said, is currently we are in the steering committee in discussions. What are the best projects to be supported on this? So this is a bit the situation where we are. I think that what was envisaged to have committed in the first is completely committed. Second is going to be completely committed in the next few months, and then the remainder will be probably committed during the course of 2020.
It's very important to understand that in the discussions that we're having with regard to the different projects that we're talking about, the monies for those projects, in particular the dump, has been committed. So the issue isn't about going to find funding for the problem. The issue now is about the execution and the solutions that will be found by those who are making the assessments environmentally and otherwise.
If you would like to follow the progress of projects supported by the Trust Fund, be sure to like the official Facebook page of the National Recovery Program Bureau at facebook.com/SXM National Recovery.